Hey, we've got a thrift haul for you today. We went to the Goodwill together, actually, with my sister Hannah and Amelia, his wife, and we spent about an hour?
Yeah, it was right around an hour.
Like
spending time walking around. We didn't really actually shop together.
No,
more
we
so
just
crossed paths and said, "Hey, look what we found," and showed up. We're just going to show you off some of the things that we picked up to resell. So.
Yeah, and you can kind of see. I have a couple things in here that I think Hannah's going to keep, but I'll show you anyway what we found. And I think this can show you what you could find in a very short period of time too. Yeah. So that's cool.
Because we're both busy. Neither one of us spend a lot of time sourcing items. We generally spend our time probably cleaning and listing items, and so it's just crazy what you can find in an hour. So why don't you start us off? What is your first item?
All right, so we'll just get this big one out of the way here. I don't know if this works yet, so there's the caveat. I'm going to test it. We're going to plug it in and everything. But this is a Waring Pro juice extractor. It's a heavy duty thing.
Wow.
It might have been for like professional use, like a juice bar or a restaurant, something like that. We did a comp on it, and I'll put that up here. It's, I want to say over $30, like maybe between 30 and 40. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly the amount, but I will put the comps in here for the stuff we've got. And we picked this up for $3.99 plus state sales tax today. Yeah. And we thought that might be a cool thing.
Yeah.
Kind of different. It's weird because we do a lot of antiques, vintage, decor, but I do pick up interesting things like this too. Like recently we sold a tortilla press thing.
And the nice thing about some of this kitchenware stuff, some of it is actually better off selling if you part them out in pieces.
Interesting.
But that's a great find. You paid $4.
$4
into 30. You can't beat it.
All right, what is your first item?
So this one we were actually standing next to each other. I picked up a Department 56 fish cabin. It is broken. There is a piece that is dangling off. So I will have to super glue that on and tell the customer, hey, I patched up the item. But Department 56 always sells really well year round. It probably right around the same thing, about $30. And I paid $3 for that.
Nice.
So I'm happy with that. Even if I get $25 just because of the fact that it is broken and repaired, it's good profit.
It's a good sized piece too.
Yeah.
Some of them are small, but that one's pretty big.
Yeah.
All right. So this is one of the items that Hannah's keeping. We have this nice sweater. It's part merino wool, part mohair, a little bit of synthetic in there too, I think. And it's actually older. I think it might be maybe 80s or 90s, like a more vintage piece, still soft, so in good shape. And that was just for the regular $6 or whatever. So pretty cheap for a sweater of this kind.
Cool. Next, I picked up a Tommy Bahama button-up shirt. These go pretty well almost all the time, $15-20.
Really?
Plus shipping. And what's nicer about this is it still has the tags. So it's going to be brand new. It's going to sell faster and probably more around that $20 mark just because of the fact it is brand new.
Nice accessible color too, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, and Tommy Bahama, they make good quality, and it doesn't have the
fan base.
Yeah, a little bit of a fan base. It doesn't have the it's got the sailfish logo on the back there. So cool. It's just one of those things. If you can get them cheap at a garage sale, you can turn $1 into 12, no problem. And a lot of times, some people don't charge their customers shipping. They'll factor that. I always charge my customers shipping. So
we do most of the time too.
Yeah. So
sometimes I factor that into how much I'm charging for a thing, but.
So I paid $5 for it. That's generally about, it's like $5 or $6 for clothing at Goodwill. So 5 into 15, I'll do that every day.
Cool. All right, so this is, it's a wooden salad bowl. But the reason I picked it up and we checked it out, I looked at it and I thought, that's interesting. But the reason we actually picked it up and brought it home was it's Dansk.
Okay.
If any of you are familiar with that brand, they're known for their mid-century modern sort of clean aesthetic, simple and like clean lines. and we've got a classic bowl. I paid $5.99 for it plus tax, and I think Hannah had done the search for me on that because I forgot my cell phone at home. And I think she got between 30 and 40, somewhere in that range again. So we thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah.
The other thing I picked up.
Do you want me to hold a couple of them?
Yeah. These pieces are kind of out there. I normally wouldn't pick up something like this.
They're kind of heavy.
They're very heavy. As I nearly throw one on the ground, but they're sculpted by Shelley and Michael Buenado. It's a little company. I'm gonna just have Sarah put in a picture of the back there.
Mm-hmm.
But I paid $5 a piece for each of these, and doing a little bit of research, they go for about $100 a piece, which is
find of the day, probably.
Yeah, best find of the day. Probably not something I would have picked out normally. My wife pointed at them and was like, I would not want those in my house. And I said, that's unique. That's very...
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah,
you know?
and just Google Lens is your friend. And had I not just snapped a picture of them, I would have known. I would have walked right past it. In fact, we both did kind of walk right past them earlier.
Yeah, I didn't even see them. I think that's a good lesson in... don't let your taste override your business either,
yeah,
because tastes vary a lot.
Yeah,
just because you wouldn't put in your home doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't.
Yep. And these may be a little bit of a slow seller, but that's fine, especially at the price point of $5.
Yeah, you got $15 in them, all three.
Mm-hmm.
This one is something else that Hannah's gonna keep. It's a little Hispanic style plate here. I'm guessing she's just gonna hang it. It's actually meant to be hung. You can see the little holes here. It's just a decorative wall plate. So that was Hannah. She paid $2.99 for it. So again, cheap decor at Goodwill. If you want to spruce up your house, a great place to find really affordable, interesting, unique pieces.
Yep. And what's the last piece you grabbed?
And the last thing is, this is classic. Yep, it's on both sides. This is classic Corningware. Has the Pyrex lid still intact, good shape. We paid $4.99 for it. I would expect to get between 20 and 30, probably. Maybe a little more, depending. I have to do a little more research on it. But yep, good shape overall. Got this nice design. Classic pieces that you can find all over thrift stores, estate sales, garage sales, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And overall, like, these $100 pieces are very much the outlier. But the average spread of like $15 to $30 is very consistent, very easy, low pressure. We were in there, like we said, about an hour, and each of us are walking home with $60 to $90. Yep, on average
for a very small amount of time.
Yep.
So obviously there'll be some time in cleaning, some time in
listing and all those other
photography and all that, but still quite a few items. Hannah got a couple things for herself here. That's what will come in handy here in Michigan. But yeah, it goes to show that you can find high value items out there, and they're not always the things you think of. Because I think there's a certain type of reseller that like goes for the obvious things, and you can kind of tell which ones they are, and it's like rushing for the electronics or rushing for that brand thing. And sometimes the more expensive pieces are things that are very niche and they're not well known.
Yeah. So if you want to find out about more things such as thrifting advice or reselling advice for eBay and other platforms, you can follow along. We do a podcast every week on Thursdays.
Called the Secondhand Sellers.
So till next time, I'm Clayton.
I'm Sarah.
And see ya.
Happy thrifting.